they think there's 11 dimensions, right?
I don't have any idea. I can barely live in this one.
Up to 26. There's
It's up to
11 like
26?
agreed upon, but I've read that it goes up to, there could be up to 26.
I don't even know what that means.
Right. What does that mean?
I have no idea.
Right. Does that mean that there are existences inside these dimensions, like other universes and worlds? They just exist in a different dimension? And is that what it means? I mean, is this like some Doctor Strange type shit? I mean, are there, the thought of alternative timelines, that there's consistently different timelines that are happening simultaneously, like an infinite number of them, and that you accessed all of them depending upon your choices and how you live your life and what you do, and that thing we think of this as being like a static state of existence, but it's actually not. That we float back and forth between all these different potential timelines and existences.
Yeah,
I see those things, the way they travel and the way they move, and I wonder, like, if there were interdimensional travelers that had access to technology that just violated all of our understanding of how you could travel, that's kind of what it would look like.
And that, that there's evidence to support that, and there's evidence to support the extraterrestrial thing.
Yeah.
And there's also evidence to support that they're showing us whatever they want us to see.
Right.
So this idea that you could pop in to our timeline, that is consistent with what we see with these things, in that they seem to, it's like there's a bubble around an area, and they seem to kind of come in. Some people can see it, some people can't. Sometimes it's on radar, sometimes it's not. Sometimes you could see it in thermal, but you can't see it in the IR. A lot of military guys see that when they track these things on radar. Can't see it visually, but it's fucking there. So this idea, there's consistency with the idea that they kind of pop into place right there. There's also data that would suggest that these are extraterrestrial, and that our satellites pick these up. Now, head of, I don't remember John Ratcliffe, he was the Deputy Director of Defense, I think, he talked about that. He mentioned that. So all these emissions from people now, we're catching these on satellites. We're catching these, so that's space, in our airspace, and then undersea as well, a USO or whatever.
So when you say they're catching them underseas, how are they?
Optically or through our sensor systems undersea, we're able to track them, and sonar.
Is there any video of a thing?
Nothing public yet that I know of, but I am hyper aware of footage, sonar-based evidence undersea. If you noticed in the congressional hearings on UFOs, first time in 50 fucking years, by the way, when they brought that up, the undersea thing, they said closed session. Couldn't say it fast enough. Like, we're not going to talk about that public session.
Really?
Yeah, because we have great fucking sensors under the ocean.
So
defense sensors.
You think that there's something that can, what is it called, a transmedium device?
That's right, transmedium, man. We talked about that years ago. Yep.
And so this is something that could fly through space and then also can go through the ocean.
All domain.
So if this thing is manipulating, like what Bob Lazar described was something that essentially bent space and time around it moved in that manner. Instead of being pushed by a force like a rocket, this thing
or roller skates.
Yeah. This thing is grabbing a hold of space and time and pulling itself towards whatever destination it wants to go to.
Yeah. And that was the thing that really flipped my script, is the idea of, like, when I heard him say that when I was a kid, instead of pushing to get somewhere. Because look, the argument has been, of course there's life out in the universe. I mean, look at the fucking Webb, photograph. Of course there's got to be life homogeneously out there, but they're never coming here. That was the Einsteinian thought, right? We can't travel faster than the speed of light.
Right.
Okay, well, that's like saying, okay, well, I got a horse, but can you imagine, one of Elon's rockets? Maybe you can't imagine that, right? But this idea that you could fall in time and space, distance becomes irrelevant. Medium becomes irrelevant. That's where the transmedium craft, they believe, the people researching this within our government, believe that these craft are gravity propelled. That's why there's the new program's called All Domain, because it's space, air, and sea. And in the congressional language for the UFO whistleblower stuff that's going on, where people can come forward, it's going to be set into law. They've already written it. The language is amazing. People are going to be able to come forward and talk about how they worked on legacy UFO programs, like reverse engineering programs. Like,
So when you say people are going to be able to, meaning the government is going to drop the restrictions that people were former employees?
I feel like I'm doing a horrible job of getting people up to date with what's happening in the UFO because so much has happened. It's like overwhelming. But yes.
It's okay.
So what's happened is if we follow the steps, all of a sudden, George and I, we release all this content. You know, people go kind of crazy over it. Then they put out this preliminary report and say we had 143 cases and we solved, one of them. And these are like military cases where there's like extraordinary movements with these craft. Then all of a sudden Congress is like, well, shit, we had OSAP, we had ATIP. Who's studying this? Let's get a hold of it. And they got real interested. So they started saying, hey, we need to start a program. Then the Department of Defense came up with some crazy ass acronym names that nobody could ever make out. AIMSOG and shit like that. And Congress got even more pissed, as the way I read it. I mean, I know some of the people involved and their minds have been blown by what they've seen in these classified briefings. It changed their whole way of thought. And they realized that there are programs being hidden, illegal programs, being hidden from congressional oversight related to UFOs. So their language now, it wasn't created in a void. When you read in the National Defense Authorization Act for 2023, UAP, it is UFO whistleblower language. If you've ever signed an NDA relating to one of these illegal programs without oversight dealing with UFOs, not only can you come forward, but they have changed it so that if there's any reprisal on you for coming forward, like let's say you work at Lockheed and you've been tinkering with some fucking UFO, and there's any reprisal on you, you have ways to defend yourself. Like they took away the cap of $300,000 of what has to be awarded to you if there's reprisal. Holy shit! All of a sudden, and I know why, because I know some of the people involved in this. They're going to let people. They're demanding that if you have this information, you can ignore your NDAs. And I know
So
people.
let's get into